Welcome to Beerstories from Beerstory Brewhouse. This video is an interview I did with Moersleutel on inspired by these two beers, how they brew Russian imperial stouts. Part one was the interview was 1.5 hours long, so I divided it in 3 parts. Part one was the brewing process. Part two was everything that happens in the cellar, fermentation and barrel aging and stuff like that. And this is part 3 with all the questions where Jorge and Rowan answer all the questions from the viewers. So stay tuned. Okay, so we should be live now. I'm sitting in my beer cave, and with me is Jorge and Rowan from Moersleutel, and we're going to talk about stouts. So let's kick it. So now we're getting into the glass. So what's the best way to drink an imperial stout in your eyes? What's the temperature like? What should the glass be like?
What I learned was that the temperature of the stout should be the amount of alcohol that's in there. So if you have a 15% ABV stout, it should be 15C.
Yeah. I
like them a touch colder than that because our barrel aged beers are usually like 14, 15, 16% alcohol. Like 12C, I think is nice. And for the glassware, Jorge, what would you recommend? Go on.
I would go with the snifter, and on the temperature, what I would say, like it depends if you're in the beer year or not. But since we sell most of our beers, well, we sell all of our beers in 44 CL cans, with the exception of Indulgence that comes in a 37.5 CL bottle. If you're drinking the beer your own, what I would say, just add the beer in the refrigerator, take it off, open it, catch yourself maybe a small pour, and get acquainted with the beer. And after, as you drink through the beer, it's not a beer that you drink in half an hour or 20 minutes. Maybe it takes you a couple of hours to get through a full can if you're doing your own. So I like to see the beers kind of developing in flavors because due to our job nature, we get to drink these beers super cold because they need to be kept super cold before packaging. And they show a certain profile. So we get to experience the beers more cold than most people. And then as they warm up, they develop flavors. So I think that's also a good experience that the consumer should have, just being able to see the beer increase in temperature. And I think a snifter, if you hold it with a palm in your hands, it will just warm up as you see it through it. So just like that.
So it's kind of a journey to see how the beer warms up and the flavors open up.
If there's one set temperature, I agree with Rowan. It should be fairly the amount of degree numbers that's in there. So it should be like 14C, 12C for most of our beers. But I would say that even higher, like 20 some C, like body temperature, would be an interesting approach. There's some brandy culture where people actually warm up glasses to drink warm brandies at 30 some C. And I think that also can benefit a stout to develop some and get really some more volatiles out there. So if you have a can for yourself, you can pretty much drink like 3 different beers, starting cold, going to room temperature, and going to slightly warm. Yeah. And you get yourself 15 CL pours that gives you 3 complete different experiences.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, cool. Okay, so it's been actually over an hour now. Let's go into some questions from the viewers. What's the craziest thing you have done in the brewery?
We've done so many crazy things. I don't know. It's difficult to isolate just one. All the adjuncts we get to use. I always tell the story. We last year made this rye wine with the raisins in collaboration with Gallia from Belgium. And we try to get the right choice of adjuncts for our beers. So next I know, I'm just looking online for raisins, and I never thought that there's more than one raisin. To me, raisin, it's a word. So there's a thing that's called raisins. I go to the supermarket, I buy raisins,
Yeah.
and all of a sudden I'm just purchasing like 10 different kinds of raisins, and I'm having a resin tasting at the brewery with my colleagues, and that's kind of mind blowing. That all of a sudden you're exploring like a unique ingredient you want to use, and you get to explore that one thing to a deep extent to find the best one to add to your beer. We've done the same with chilies, we've done the same with chocolates or coffee, but those things we know from art that they exist in several varieties. While raisins, it was like, wow, what am I doing? So it's I'll take raisins, but black cardamom. We're now working on cherry pits. There's a crazy lot of stuff that we've used around here.
Mm.
You kind of got that. Rob built a new additions tank for us just to put more nuts into a beer, because we had a little additions tank, 200 liters. It was just not cutting it. We needed to do it 2 or 3 or 4 times over the bright beer tank. So he built us a new one, which fits like 6 times the amount. That was quite crazy. First time we used that thing was a party. It was peanuts, right? I think it was peanuts. Yeah. It was like half a ton of peanuts going in.
Okay.
460 kilos, if memory serves me right.
For how many liters?
5,000.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Less than 5,000, I would say. 45. Yeah, something like that.
Okay, so are there any adjuncts that doesn't fit in a beer?
Yes, George. Are there any adjuncts? You had one, right?
You want to go for apples?
Yes, green apple, right? Green apple was a bit of a... No, I'm not sure. We can try anything, but I think you need to be aware of the combination it makes with the beer.
Yeah.
You can make a lot of adjuncts work in a certain beer style.
Yeah, I think I've overcome my past fear of apples. That's my thing, because apples, like acetaldehyde, it's a common flavor in beers.
Yeah, exactly.
And especially in stouts, because you're dealing, as we've touched upon, alpha yeast, and it's related to yeast health. So whenever I have a beer that tastes like green apples, kind of triggers me in the wrong way, because I feel like something's wrong with the beer. So it needs to be, it's walking on eggshells. It can be worked on, and I think they'll make me do it at some point. But I think it's troublesome. So I've had a lot of beers with apple, and most of them just resemble the off flavor. So it needs to have the perfect fitting to make it work. For example, we're now working on a beer with bitter almond, which I think it's a very invasive type of flavor. So it needs to be tailored correctly to make sure you only capture the part you want of those flavors. So for that, it may mean that we do some research, like on terms of food items, to see how those flavors are placed in the actual world to taste pleasantly, and then we try to translate into our world in beer. But I would say green apple is the one that fears me the most, or apples in general.
Yeah. I can relate to that. So, who's your brewing idols? Which breweries do you really look up to? And yeah.
Well, it depends on which style of beer we're talking about.
We're still talking about stouts, I think. Yeah.
In stouts, I would say the Colonel in London got me inspired to do a lot of these hoppy stouts we've been doing in the past couple of years. Even though we brew them in our own fashion, they were and still are one of the few brave breweries that can bring nice hoppy stouts and some other beers. And I think they have a nice balance between modern styles and classic styles. And I try to get inspired by that balance that they portray in their beers.
Yeah, cool. So I'm just going to look through some of the questions here. Talked about that. So when you're doing a double mash, are you just mixing all the grains, or are you waiting for with the roasted grains to the second batch, or how are you doing that?
We mix them all together. So the way we have the brewery set up, everything's milled together, everything's contained in a box, and that everything gets dispensed simultaneously.
Okay.
In the past, we've done cold steeping, which is pretty common in stouts, but we've made some blind tasting back then, and we couldn't really spot the difference on doing such a thing. It might be related to our brewing kit, but we need to adjust as it goes. And I think that's the key here. Like, we have our brewing kit, so we have our grain conveyor belt, we have our mash tun, our mash filter, and the next brewery, they can just copy our process, but it just doesn't mean it won't work out. You just need to get your foundation and see and adjust to what works out in your equipment.
Yeah, because usually when I double mash, I use all the base malts in the first mash just to get all the enzymes going, and then I add switch it out with the specialty malts and stuff like that. Okay, yeah. After Sweden, we talked about that. Okay, here's a question from one of the Danish beer bloggers. So after winning the best foreign brewery in Denmark, have you seen your sales have they increased, or the demand for your beers in Denmark, have they increased after that?
I don't know. I just make beer. I think Rowan is even more blind than I am to sales. I know that Denmark is a pretty important country to us. We get a lot of feedback, and we have a sense of community out there. So we really like this connection we have with Denmark. I'm not really sure if that means we're doing more sales or not, but again, I'm a brewer. Like, making sales not really top of my priorities at the moment. It's more being able to create this sense of community and being present in these actions. I've done with Niels, together with Niels, that's Flanner Liquids, who does the distribution in Denmark. We've done live videos with him. I've been present at the award that was given to us. We're here now, so it's something that we take some pride of doing, and we want to be part of the community. If it sells more or not, I don't really know, but I hope it does, because I still need a place to work next week.
Cool. So there is someone who's asking if there's any chocolate malt that actually tastes like chocolate. How do you bring out the chocolate flavor in a stout?
Use chocolate. That's the easy answer.
You use it 7 times in the process, right?
Yeah. Yeah. But if you only gotta use malts, how do you bring out the chocolate flavors?
I would say a combination between caramel malts, brown malt, and chocolate malt. Those three combined, they will enhance the chocolate flavor. I'd say that brown malt to me even tastes more like chocolate than actually chocolate malt, and chocolate malt just a straight up coffee flavor. Yeah.
Okay. So the caramel and the brown malt to actually get out the sweetness and the chocolate flavor, and then just kind of the bitterness and the roastiness from the chocolate malt.
Yeah, I think brown malt is a very overlooked grain, all in all.
Yeah, cool. I think you answered a lot of them just in the chat here.
Yeah, I've been dropping some answers.
Yeah. During House, we did that as well.
But if you see any topic worthwhile of going further, feel free to bring that up.
There's an interesting one here. Do you have any favorite beer brand regarding barrels, barrel aging in general. Who besides you, who makes the best barrel aged stouts?
That's difficult.
Larvish is doing very well, I would say.
Yeah.
The Rec House.
There's a few. I mean, I really like Poyala. They're great friends. Puhaste, they also make some great stuff. It's difficult to pick out one as a whole because I mean, beers, even our beers. I mean, most of them I think they're great, but I'm biased, of course. I think it really depends on each individual beer and where you also drink those beers, when you drink those beers, with who you drink those beers. But we won't say anything that you guys are not really thinking. Like Lervik's a great call. Nerd Brewing in Sweden also doing great stuff.
Yeah.
There's a lot of good beers out there.
Yeah. Luckily, there's a lot of good beers out there. Yeah. And how are you staying on top of that? Because there are really a lot of great breweries, and just the last 5 years in Denmark anyway, there have been a lot of new breweries, and I guess it's the same all over Europe and the US as well. But how are you staying on top of your game? What's your inspiration, and how do you keep? Because I see you guys as one of the. If I'm thinking about if I'm drinking a barrel aged stout or just an imperial stout, I'm always comparing it to you guys. So how are you going to stay up there in the future?
I think it's the brewers. You need to find passionate people that like not just beer but flavor in general, that are always exploring new things. People that like to travel to just find what's being done out there, and you keep promoting this and fomenting this creative mind to stay out there. And I think our savviness for getting the best beers out there always and never having a perfect recipe, it's what makes us a foundation for the future and set us for success. You see a lot of breweries that they've made a recipe 5, 10, 12 years ago, 15, 20 years ago, and it worked great back in that time. But our palates are constantly changing. I'm pretty sure that your habits, be that drinking or eating habits, are not the same you had last 10 years. I mean, they're changing constantly. So no one has drink, or most people don't drink the same beverage their entire life or eat the same food. We need to change. And that's the same with beers. We could make cranked juice or fruit bomb or mozzarella and saying that we're never changing the way we make this beer. We have to change. We need to stay relevant, and we need to understand the trends in the market, what people are looking for, what is changing in those people palates, and try to anticipate their needs and change our beers to stay top of our game. So it's a very demanding job, but I think the brewers are the ones to that can best get these beers out there.
Yeah, cool.
I would say we are not aiming for consistency, but we are aiming for a consistent, better product. Let's say consistently better product, and I think that's what will get us on top of everything. Let's say.
Yeah, cool, awesome. I think that was a good way to round off. So, have you got anything? Your last thing to say to the viewers, or anything about the topic? Cool. Yeah. Well, that's that's okay. Yeah, it was awesome to have you. It was really great to learn more about the way you are brewing stouts. So thank you for being here.
I'd like to thank everyone that tuned in and everyone that will watch this eventually far in the future. Thanks for all the support. I guess thanks to you guys for just be curious to drink our beers, and thank you, Lars, for showing up interest to having us here, to have us be the first brewery that you're talking to, and perhaps the first time you do such a live interview and all that. It's pretty awesome, and I hope that some of these insights can be helpful to get better beer out there, because better beer is always better. So
Yeah, cool, awesome. Yeah, well, yeah, thank you guys.
That was the end of part 3, where George and Rowan answered all the questions from the viewers. Yeah, if you want to go back and check out part 1 with all the brewing, or part 2 with everything that happens in the cellar, you can do that up here. Other than that, well, just thanks for watching.